I'm Joe Puckett. I want to welcome you and thanks for joining me to discuss this very important topic today. I want to talk about these car crashes and what they have to do with you and I, how important it is for us to discuss the possibilities and dig in. So let's talk about car crashes and what I believe might be driver targeting for our churches. So we want to talk about that, drivers targeting our churches. And it started yesterday when I saw this video. I've been doing some research, and this video right here clearly shows a car driving across a parking lot, a long parking lot, and driving right through a church. And you can get online and take a look at some videos from inside the church as well, the surveillance video. This started at a burger shack in Waco, Texas, and there was some issues with the driver. So somebody got their video camera out, started videotaping. This is no accident. This isn't running off the road. This isn't being intoxicated and driving the wrong way. This is somebody who deliberately drives across the parking lot and into a church. So, as we take a look at this stuff, I'm really wanting to dig in here and talk to you about how this is an area that we need to be cautious in, and we need to be doing some planning and some preparing for. About 8 months ago, I did a little bit of discussion about this because there was a lot of things going on in churches, vandalisms, car crashes into churches. But I want to dig in just a little bit deeper with you today and talk about these things that we're seeing. Here's one. This one is in Florida. It's a church in Florida, and basically, and bear with me as I work through these videos. Basically, this guy he's being pursued by police. And, we can write it off. And that's how it's reported, is the guy that's intoxicated is being pursued by the police. But I want you to take a look at this. This guy, there's no skidding. There's no brakes. There's no loss of control here as this police officer is chasing him. And this chase has been going on for a while. I'm just cutting right to the end of it here because I want to take a look at this. There's no skidding, nothing. He turns and goes right into that church, right into the front of that church. And so I want to make sure we're discussing these for what they are. They're written off as intoxicated driver, and we see them here and there. But I think there's a little more meaning to those. Let's dig into the next one. Here's a pastor that agrees with me. This pastor here in Massachusetts had a car crash in, and it went straight across the parking lot and right into the church. And this pastor is furious because he says his church has been victimized for weeks. He had a string of vandalism at his church, and then all of a sudden that stops, and then he has this car crash, which closed his church down for a while. So he's extremely upset about that situation. And, I tend to agree with him. I don't think these are necessarily just accidents. They're not just somebody's intoxicated, or they're not just because somebody accidentally goes off the road. These are more purposeful. Now, there's plenty of car crashes where a car veers into another car, hits it, bounces off of it, goes across the street into a building. And I'm going to show you one here in just a few minutes that I believe is questionable. Is it possible it was purposeful? Is it possible it was a out of control car that missed the intersection? And so certainly as an investigator, former police officer, traffic investigator that I did day to day in my job, I am cautious about these things, and I take a look at these things, and I'm suspicious, especially given the day and age that we're in, where I believe there's a lot of other reasons, and I'm going to share those reasons with you. And I'm doing this all to give you something to think about. We go to the next one, the next situation here. And this one is in Birmingham, Alabama. Car drives right across the parking lot and comes off a roadway, across the parking lot and into the front of the church. I mean, notice as we look at this, notice it's almost right through the front door of the church. Could it have been a total accident? Sure, could have been. But am I suspicious of this? And I absolutely am. I'm absolutely suspicious of this when a car goes off the road, across the parking lot, and bam, into the front of the church, near the front doors of the church. Very suspicious of that. So, and that's my investigator in me, but that's the reality of it. So then we take a look at the next one from Houston. Mount Calvary Baptist Church, car bam, right into the church, crashes right through the church. Here's the interesting thing is this guy gets out. I'm going to pause it for a second as we discuss it. This guy gets out and, he's either having a fit of rage or it kind of almost looks like he's doing a little dance. And he's on the roof of his car, by the way. And then he, after he's done doing his little dance, he grabs a chandelier off the ceiling, rips it down and throws it around. So, do I think this is a normal car crash? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you or I had accidentally run off the road and into a church, I would get out of the car and I would be shaken up. I might be mad, but I'm not going to jump on the roof of my car and start doing more damage to the church. I'm not going to do anything that looks like I'm kind of dancing a jig here a little bit. So this is concerning to me. As we see this, we'll back it up just a little bit. Take a look at it again. Car comes into the church, crashes through the front doors, by the way. And this guy gets out and gets on top of his car, doing some kind of maybe muscle man, dancing around a little bit. Maybe he's mad. Yeah, I'll agree with you. Maybe he's a little bit mad, but I think I see some other things here. And by the way, you and I are not going to continue tearing up the church when we're doing that kind of stuff. When we have an accident, we're not going to keep tearing up the church. Next, we go to Pritchard, Alabama. Pritchard, Alabama, car turns off of the street, right off the street, and bam, right into the front of the church. There's no swerving, there's no braking, there's no anything. The car is just bam, off the road into the church. Now, the rest of the story, by the way, is that these people are having a argument. There's like 3 or 4 of them in the car. They're having an argument, and they crash through the church during this argument. So was it on purpose? Yeah, I think it was. They're angry, they're mad, however it is you want to look at it. And during this, we have some sort of fit of rage or I don't know what, suicidal tendency. And I'm just going to turn and bam, go into the church. And they're seen in further video. You can see them, they're getting out and they're having an argument. They're coming out of the church. So fortunately, they weren't injured as I understand it. And here's the vehicle where it ended up inside the church. Fortunately, nobody was there. Now we take a look at this one from Crestview, Florida. Intersection, church is just beyond. Could this be purposeful? It could. I lean a little bit on this one towards it was probably an accident. There was some discussion of intoxication with this guy and an accident, and I tend to lend more towards that for this one. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Let's dig in here a minute and talk about drivers targeting churches, because I do believe some of this is our drivers targeting churches. And why would they be doing that? And there's all kinds of reasons, causation, however you want to determine it. Intoxication, they're under the influence, mental health issues, and they could be having disagreements or arguments, domestic arguments in the car, and all of a sudden they just are mad. They're ticked off and they just decide there's a church, I'm going to drive into the church. And that could be relative to any of these, a suicide attempt, criminal intent to do some kind of harm. And like the one pastor was upset because he felt like that he's been going through a series of vandalism, and now here's like the ultimate vandalism to close his church down. So, I do believe it happens. So the criminal intent, or could it be domestic terrorism? And, I want to point out, and I'm have to be very cautious here because I love everybody, but I am an investigator at heart. And I want to mention that if you look at internationally, if you look at worldwide, one of the ways people cause havoc and death and damage is by driving cars into stuff. You don't have a gun, you don't have any other weapons, use that car. It's a 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 pound weapon. And so it does happen. So domestic terrorism could be a reason for some of this. We see it in other areas. We're just focused on churches here, but we see it in other areas. How many times have we heard of the parade where somebody drives through it, or drives through the runners that are having a marathon? We hear about these kind of things, drives into businesses. And so we're just focused on churches today, but it happens. And so I want to caution us. And could it be accidental? Absolutely. And I do believe there's a chunk of these that are accidental. I've gone back a few months to a couple of years to get some of these good videos, but I believe there's a lot more of this that is going on, and some of these can be multiple reasons. It could be that I'm under the influence, I have mental health issues, and I'm having a domestic dispute with my partner, with my wife or my significant other. And I decide I'm going to just swing into this church and try to kill us both. Something along those lines. My purpose for this is not to scare you, because it's not a widespread terrorism issue at this point, or any other widespread issue, but it's happening. And a lot of these that are happening are fortunately happening when the church is not in session. If the church was in session, it could be catastrophic. It could be a huge problem. And so I want to begin to get you thinking, though, especially when we have a grant period coming up, the Homeland Security grant for nonprofits for churches is getting ready to change. It's getting ready to come out anew, if you will, with new funding, new money. And I want to encourage you to look at some of these things, because, these can be $400 plus to have a cement barricade. But having these anchored out in front of your church, near the doorways, to keep a vehicle from just speeding through the church, especially if you're on a highway or a main thoroughfare. But some of these that we saw, it doesn't take a main highway to have this happen. It's a roadway and a driveway and a parking lot, and then into the church. So I just want to recommend to you to think about this, depending on your location, about spending some money. And we have the opportunity coming up to maybe apply for a grant and get some money to install 3 or 4 of these, or 2 of these. And then there's other things. What do they call these? Bollards. And, having these posts put into the ground, much more, maybe even protectant, because they're in the ground. But it does cost a few $100 for each one of these to have them installed, from what I understand. I haven't actually gone through installation of these. I haven't gotten an actual bid for them, but doing some research, they can cost $200 to $500 pretty easily. And they have, there's all kinds of different ones. You don't have to have the bright yellow ones out in front of your church. They make some designer ones, if you will, that you can see here, even some round ones. I mean, if I'm going to install them, though, and I'm on a highway, I want these things to be extremely sturdy as when I install these things, because I want them to take care of my church. Out front of the building, I mean, if your building's near a main road and near your auditorium, your sanctuary is near the main road, even if the entrance is on the opposite side, if the main part of your building is close to a highway, close to a roadway, we need to be thinking about these kind of things. Now, I've had some people before in our discussions talk about just getting some big old rocks, getting some machinery to bring those big old rocks in there and set them in the ground. And, that's great. You don't have to spend this kind of money, especially if you've got maybe a landscaper that's in your congregation. Maybe you can get a hold of some big old rocks and put those between the road and your church and take care of that. So I'm just interested in having that discussion and making sure that we're, not just letting these things go by us when there's evidence out there that maybe some of these things are being purposeful. Are they terrorism? I don't think I could go that far to say that I'm seeing some sort of string of terrorism here against churches with vehicles. I'm not there. But what I am saying to you is I think there's many reasons, as I pointed out to you, that people might choose to run their cars into your church. And that's enough for me to begin the discussion and talk about it and begin looking into, I want to stay one step ahead of this possible problem. And maybe I get a grant or get somebody to help us install these in our church. Thanks for watching. Hey, I hope you like and subscribe to the channel here. Both helps us to continue to expand our channel, and we want to reach more folks. And then take a look at this next video and leave me a comment if you want to as well down in the description. And we've got all kinds of things down there for you in the description if you want to take a look at that stuff. But here's the next video. Take a look at this.